Hey guys, Dr. Tim. So I think there's been some questions out there about NPS scores and the cards we're collecting and why are we doing that? What does it mean and what meaning? So I want to give everybody kind of just a brief education. It's something we've done since 2000, like 2007 or 8, and then we kind of quit doing it during COVID, and now we're starting it up again. So let me give you kind of a brief history. In 2003, a gentleman was assigned a task. He worked for Baines, which is a big a venture capital group, and they started saying, is there a question that we can ask instead of all these customer surveys asking 100 questions? It didn't seem to really make any sense. And so after multiple iterations, they narrowed it down to basically one question that defines the interaction between a company and its customers, whether or not we serve them, or whether or not they become advocates of ours. And the question is, would you refer a friend or family member to us? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood you would refer a friend or family member to us? And so this became known as the Net Promoter Score, and I'll tell you why. What they found is if somebody gave you an 8, a 9, or a 10, they became a promoter of your business. They would go around and talk to people about you, how great you are, what you're doing, etc. They became promoters. You don't need marketing because they promote you. If they gave you a 6, 7, or 8, a 5, 6, or 7, then it meant they'll take you or leave you. If they come to you, that's great, but if they find somebody cheaper, they'll go to their closer, they'll go to them. And if it's below 6, 5, then of course they're detractors, which means they're going around telling everybody how terrible you are. And they'll do that 10 more times than they will the other. So just by tracking this one question, you can make yourself a score. So you can go 1 through 10, how many 9s did we get, 8s did we get, and then you do an average and say our Net Promoter Score for this week is this. And you can measure that over time. Are we doing better? Are we doing worse? How are we treating our customers? How are we taking care of them? So it's important for us so that we can say, how are we treating people and what's happening? How do they feel about us? But it has another important part, and the reason I'm talking to you today is so you'll understand this. It's great when somebody rates us an 8, 9, or 10, and it's a little pat on the back, yay, good for us. But what's really important is when they're lower than that, what do we do about that, right? So I don't know if you've ever been to a company, you have a complaint, you try and solve your problem, and they won't listen to you. They don't do anything to fix your problem, and now you hate that company. Versus, you go to a company, you buy a product, you have a problem, and you need to return it, or you have a problem, and they just bend over backwards to take care of you and make you happy. Even though you were originally unhappy, you become a raving fan of that company because the way they took care of you when you had a problem. So it's even more important that we pay attention to the lower scores and we do something about it to make those people happy than it is just the high scores. The reason I bring this up is there's word on the street that some people are only taking the high scores and putting those in the pile and taking the low scores, and we're not looking at those. Those are actually more important. We're not about how do we pat ourselves on the back, what did we do great this week. We want to know where could we improve and which things could we do better, and people who weren't happy, what could we have done? Because there's 2 questions on the form. How likely are you to refer to us? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate us? What would have made it a 10? We can get a lot of information from what would have made it a 10. Some of them are fun and silly. Obviously, we had somebody who said serve beer. That would be cool. But we also get really good ideas, really things we could do. So please do 2 things for me. Make sure we collect the cards and make sure you put the bad ones with the good ones so we really get an idea of, are we getting better? Are we staying the same? Are we getting worse? It's really, really important, because if we want to grow this company and we want to be successful together, then we're going to have to be important in people's lives and make them happy to do it. So that's why the scores are important. So keep working out there. Appreciate all you do. Thanks. Stop.